Now that you've seen me talk about the best movies of 2025, let's get to the fun list, which is the worst movies of 2025. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's me, Kid the Review, back again. And let's just say 2025 had some movies where, you know what? Each of these weren't even bad movies to say, but most of them disappointed me. And a couple of the ones where I thought, okay, now this is the worst I've seen of this year, ended up on this list anyway. But a couple of the ones where I'm like, yeah, these movies shouldn't even be on this list, where I'm like, yeah, there's other stuff I wish I could have done. Because I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't even gonna do a top 10 worst of 2025 where I thought, well, there's not really that much out there that I hate, but it's most of the things where I'm like, yeah, I'm disappointed in half of these, and the rest of these, yeah, that stay the same. Just pointing out there, these might not be the worst movies for anybody else. These are in my opinion, and let me just say, yeah, movies are subjective in a way where a couple ones that should be on here weren't even on this list, especially Materialist, because I'm surprised. I'm like, ooh, I hate that whole, you know what? This is the message without actually understanding. Wait a minute. I'm still like, wait a minute. So you feel like you have to have every piece of rich qualities to actually be with that person? Like that movie kind of messed me up. But spoiler, it's not even on this list. Well, in that case, let's get started with number 10. Nine Inch Nails made a good movie soundtrack, but you need a good movie to actually work well with the soundtrack. And it's one of my, you know what? Disney, do right with these franchises, and especially with this one with Tron Ares. The idea of putting Tron in the real world, that's something I feel like, okay, you can lead up to it, but the thing is that, yeah, the most interesting thing about these movies is the world inside the game. And seeing as though, okay, most of this actually isn't really continuing off where we last left off in Legacy. No Korra, no Finn. Another fact that nothing is even referenced from Legacy in this movie besides a brief photograph at the very end. Jared Leto was enjoyable-ish in this, but everything revolving around the whole world and everything seeing as though, okay, this super soldier AI is actually going to be the best thing out there, and you don't even explore anything about the world in hand. Even some actors where I'm like, wait, Cameron Monaghan is in this, and he just got killed in an instant, and then never seen again. This movie to me was a drag, and hopefully Disney could actually try and do this in a TV series format because I feel like the way they said, okay, we're not doing any more Tron movies after this tells me, yeah, get people who actually like the stuff to actually make these movies and not just focus on just, oh, they want another one? We'll just throw it out and not continue whatever we have less left off. So let's move on. Now, this, I wouldn't say I was intrigued, but also you have an understanding. When it says produced by Jordan Peele, you gotta understand it's not really directed by him, which a couple people I knew found out that it wasn't directed by Jordan Peele. And I want to be the one to say it, but it was him. Marlon Wayans, I could say, saves this movie where I'm like, okay, this is something different normally than his comedies. And seeing as though I'm like, okay, he pulled the dramatic performance, which, not gonna lie, even though despite everything around this film, he was still the best part of it. And some ideas where I thought, okay, is this gonna be like a psychological effect of football players? The fact that he's seeing everything through a horror lens, but everything really is like some satanic ritual, which I'm like, yeah, the movie in my head that I predicted is a little bit better than what was on screen. We were on a roll with video game movies these past couple years, and this movie, or should I say these next two on my list, actually tell me that, you know what? You should base a movie based on a video game with the video game at hand and not just create an original story just to say, you know what? We'll do everything with the characters in the lore, but not really do anything to actually expand the lore and actually make it so it makes sense. And it's Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I might talk about this movie at some point, but it's kind of weird to me that the first movie I could say, okay, it's enjoyable in the fact that included pieces and bits of the lore and try to include it into one movie where I'm like, okay, you picked up from this era and a little bit of modern Five Nights at Freddy's lore with characters. I'm like, okay, they shouldn't even be here, and changes where I'm like, okay, that's acceptable, but unless you're gonna lead into something bigger, it kind of has me on board. But this movie said, you know what? Forget everything you knew about the first one and forget everything you knew about the games because they're technically not following that now. I'm not interested in these characters for a fact that everything here, and it's kind of spoilers because I feel like everybody knows it at this point, but Mike Schmidt isn't really Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt, the main character of the games, is known as Michael Afton, and this version of Mike Schmidt isn't really Michael Afton, but we have another villainous character playing Michael Afton. Tells me, yeah, you complicated the lore of the game, and the fact that the toy animatronics in here, as good as they look, tells me, you know what? These characters would have been better if it was based on a prequel really about the beginning. The first 5 minutes of this movie told me what I needed to know, and I said, you know what? This is a good movie if only the movie actually took place in that era. It complicates the lore for fans and some character assassination attempts where I'm like, yeah, you really ruined what could have been one of the best video game adaptations. And funny enough, now that we have Iron Lung that just came out, it kind of really did tell me, you know what? If this movie was made with a smaller budget and not from big studios trying to make general audiences understand the games or trying to make it make sense to them, a part of it just told me, you know what? Markiplier could have made a better finance for the movies than the ones we got. Fingers crossed, part three is good. Same rules apply for this one. If you're going to do a video game movie, follow the video game story. And this movie, even though there are a couple of decisions that actually qualify in the fact where I'm like, okay, those are factors to actually make it the movie as it is or the game as it is, but just making an original story, not really basing anything off the game and just using it for the sake of title, that doesn't work at all. And it's Until Dawn. When they announced it, I thought, okay, that's a good idea actually doing a decision based movie game. And I'm like, okay, I wonder what's going to be like the main choices that players had from the game that are actually going to be the real choices the characters make in the movie. And once they announced the cast, I said, okay, are they really going to be using these characters in a way where I'm like, are they supposed to be the main characters from the game? But once they revealed it's an original story with one returning character, I said, yeah, this is not going to be like the game at all. Everything you know about the Until Dawn game is shown in the last couple minutes of this movie, especially with the Wendigos and the gameplay elements where I'm like, okay, so it's kind of weird that this whole Groundhog Day style movie was just fake Final Destination deaths after Final Destination deaths. But I'm like, okay, none of it is interesting. It has some cool ish kills and some ones I didn't expect and would be kind of cool to see in something else. But calling this Until Dawn doesn't make any sense when this could have been something else. And seeing as though why suddenly this whole movie switches once it gets to the Wendigo era, and I can say, yeah, that could have been your new movie, and that could have been the movie we got instead of just Groundhog Day with just deaths. The last disappointment on this list, and it's one I thought, okay, you know what? We had attempts of actually doing monsters with realism. I wouldn't normally say that's the good way to go, but this movie told me, you know what? I feel like we're done with monsters and realism, and it's the Wolfman. I like what Lee Winnell did with the Invisible Man, actually bringing oh, it's not a potion that actually makes somebody invisible, but somebody going in an invisible suit that actually mess with somebody, and the tension and horror where you're like, okay, you don't know whether or not he's right there when he's clearly in the room since the camera's actually showing the outer space. Wolfman kind of told me, yeah, mixing in diseases and calling it a wolf man doesn't really make it a soap because the fact that, yeah, that costume of what the Wolfman was originally going to look like leaked out in Halloween Horror Nights, and I said, that looks like a rabid person instead of a wolf. Where's the wolf man? They tried doing some cool scenes with echolocation where I'm like, okay, you could see the sense of whether somebody's human or whether or not he's gonna transform into the wolf, seeing as though, okay, he's changing, but he's still trying to control himself, seeing as though this is my family. I can't do nothing to harm them. I'm trying to protect them from myself. And seeing as though, yeah, this movie really didn't do enough for me, and seeing as though, you know what, monsters are called monsters for a reason and Frankenstein kind of did tell me that, you know what, sticking to the roots of the character and its lore and actually exploring the fantasy element of it actually works better than actually trying to make it real. So in this case, good luck, mummy. Moving forward, these are the movies I actually despise of this year, and I since getting through the disappointments, I feel like this movie it wasn't even like a surprise to everybody that it was bad, but it's more of the way I thought. You know what? It could be just overhype and just talk on the internet, where I'm like, you know what? People are just second guessing this movie, but I might as well just watch it myself and see how it is. And I'm still conflicted in the fact that I'm like, you know what, Disney? If you do a remake, I'd rather just have you do copy and paste than do something different, and it's Snow White. This current era of Disney should be studied in a way because I feel like the way they're pushing out movies where, okay, instead of just doing remakes for the sake of remakes, let's change the story and actually make it a little bit more, not modernizing it, but more, let's change the story where, okay, Snow White doesn't need a man. She's a independent woman. She's somebody who actually can do things herself, which I'm like, yeah, but isn't she a princess in the sense that this whole story is revolving around her actually trying to figure out something in a way where I'm like, okay, she met the dwarves, and the dwarves are actually protecting her in a way where the evil queen wants to get her for the sake of actually trying to be the most, I wouldn't say the fairest of them all, but in this case, I wouldn't even see it in a way where I'm like, why didn't I just do the original story since it's a tale as old as time? And seeing where exactly the ratios come into play, because I feel like once they explore this whole group of bandits in the woods and they were supposed to be the seven dwarves, really, but not really. And creating songs where I'm like, okay, this is actually you trying to push the agenda of those are princess problems. And the fact that princesses are exactly weak and you don't have to do that, where I'm like, she's a princess. What are you trying to say by that saying that by like, okay, so princes can't be princes and princesses can't be princesses anymore in these things? The dwarves kind of added like the original factor of the story into it, but it's one of those, the dwarves were fine and the story would have still worked out with them either way as the main characters in this story, which I don't even know why they tried actually pushing an agenda for something like this. It's not that it was diverse, it's the fact that they changed an original story and seeing as though they try to push something different, make it so it's some girl power movie when it's really not. Hopefully Disney learned from the I wouldn't say surprise bomb this movie was, but let's just say they do better for the next one because at least Lilo and Stitch didn't do something like that. I haven't had a chance to watch chapter 3 yet, and seeing as though I don't have the time actually out there to go watch it right now, kind of just tells me, is it worth watching in theaters? But then again, I could just wait it out. And seeing as though part 2 of this movie was as bad as it was The Strangers chapter 2. Strangers, I thought, okay, hopefully they actually fix things up because I feel like, okay, the first one, it was a decent remake-ish attempt where I'm like, okay, they're just basically doing the first movie in a new way. And I think, okay, now that we get that out of the way, the sequel can do its thing and actually fulfill a bit of the things we haven't seen before in the Strangers movies. But this movie just tells me, yeah, this is the longest chasing. Like, imagine Halloween 2 where, okay, instead of Laurie just staying in the hospital, it's just that long chase scene from her running from her house to the Mackenzies, that would just be one long chase scene and it doesn't even lead to anything, especially the fact where I'm like, okay, so one of the strangers dies and a giant boar fight where I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with anything revolving the strangers? And trying to humanize them in a way where I'm like, you know what? The strangers are called the strangers for a reason, and the fact where I'm like, dude, should I even continue at part 3, even though it would actually add another addition to this year's worst list? A part of me would just want to watch it just to complete this whole story, but hopefully they actually get picked up by the next best thing because I feel like, yeah, take this to Blumhouse or any other studio and they'll actually do something better with the strangers. Ever since The Idol, I thought, you know what? Is The Weeknd a good actor? Maybe. Is he good at voice acting? Maybe so. But something told me, you know what? Hopefully, with his new film, he could actually do something better and redeem himself. But yeah, this end up did no favors, I would say, whatsoever. And actually makes me wonder, you know what? If he does that a thing, besides music, I'm not going to end up watching it. And it's Hurry Up Tomorrow. As a fan, I kind of understand the movie in its way and within the soundtrack because I'm like, these aren't bad songs. But the way he glorifies himself in this movie, I'm like, okay, so in a narrative, it doesn't make sense, and everything is just feels like a music video after music video with no context of what's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch any trailers. All I saw was new movie coming up on the weekend, and I thought, okay, I might as well just go see it. And it took me about an hour in to realize, wait, is this movie about himself? Jenna Ortega was kind of wasted, and it kind of makes me wonder: is she making like good positions in acting? Where I'm like, I'm surprised by some of these roles that she's been taking on. That's not like the main Wednesday Scream era movies. Where I'm like, she had a good hit after hit everything she's been in, but I'm surprised it's one of those. Yeah, even you couldn't save it. A better version of this movie is the soundtrack, and hopefully I can just say, you know what? If he just sticks to music, I'm fine. If he wants to do voice acting, better because I feel like he's better voice acting than actually doing his own thing. Bringing back classic cartoons from the 80s is one thing. Doing a movie where I'm like, okay, hopefully they could actually try and do this right because I feel like, okay, so these trailers are showing me one thing, but let me see the movie in its full context and hopefully it actually turns out well. But yeah, at this point, I'm like, stop making movies where I'm like, okay, these kids nowadays know garbage and brain rot, so don't even mess up with my old properties. And it's Smurfs. It's kind of weird to me to the fact that, okay, it's a Smurfs movie. I feel like it's not going to be really important to anybody, but I feel like it's one of those, oh, I grew up with the property, and seeing as though, okay, we had our versions. We had the 80s cartoon and the live action movies, which not a lot of people enjoy, but it was one of those eras where I'm like, oh, they're just bringing them into the real world because I'm accustomed to what they were doing at the time. Smurfs: The Lost Village was a decent attempt to actually bring their world into animation, taking place in the world of the Smurfs. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't mind actually seeing more of this. And they actually expanded it to a TV series. But when they did this new rebooted version, where I'm like, yeah, you guys just don't care about these characters, and you're just trying to make modern references, not just that, but brain rot, and actually make these characters nothing of what these characters are supposed to be. You could have called this something else, but not make it the Smurfs. Like the Smurfs, I feel like they wanted to attach it because it's a big property out there for some people, but I feel like at this point, I feel like every time they do one of these movies, it's like, why just modernize it and just instead of doing the cartoon as it is? Because if you modernize something old, it's just to accompany it for the new viewers rather than just respect what it is and do something interesting with it. Because I feel like, yeah, every time they reboot one of these things, especially the fact that even in cartoons nowadays, most of them end up being garbage, just by doing the modern thing, by just appealing to Gen Z, which I'm like, yeah, that's not why we love these things. But hopefully, this is the last time I try doing this with an actual IP because if they made a Schmaloogle movie, that would make a lot more sense. Coming in at number one is a movie I thought, is this a joke? Because I didn't even hear about it until I heard about it with the memes. And it's one of those, it's so bad it's good, but also watching it in its entirety, I thought, yeah, this movie's just bad. And kind of hearing that this movie was supposedly, I wouldn't say supposedly, but I feel like it had to be made in 2020. And once they revealed it was made in 2020, that kind of told me, you know what? It wasn't even worth releasing. And this could have been a tax write off. And it's War of the Worlds. When I heard that this movie was a found footage movie in the sense that, oh, they're going to be doing the story of War of the Worlds, but actually incorporating found footage elements to it, I thought, you know what? That's not a bad idea since we've already seen it remade before and seeing as though we have other examples out there like Cloverfield, where instead of a giant monster, we're actually filming a giant alien invasion. Seeing as though, okay, it's boots on the ground, you can actually film it on the camera. And funny enough, the way technology works in their world, I'm like, yeah, it makes more sense to actually do it this way. But this movie was just doing the whole searching missing thing, where instead of just, oh, we're seeing the world of the alien invasion going on the outside, we're seeing Ice Cube talking to a screen the whole time, not really interacting with the audience, but more like just reading off of a script. I feel like it's on the side of him because it feels like it is. It made for some good memes, but I still want to have a good movie in mind. And even though it was one of those, oh, it's released on Amazon, so you can watch it there. I'm surprised that Amazon is one of those companies where I'm like, yeah, I'll still release this. If it came out in 2020 as it was a poster release, you could actually say, well, it was one of those movies since Hollywood didn't have anything big to do at the time to actually release it around that period. But seeing as though it's 2025 when this came out and they decided to put it out now, tells me, you know what? They just wanted to push this out there instead of doing something like Warner Brothers and actually make it a tax write off. So it feels like plus on Amazon because they feel like they actually have the courage to actually put out bad movies, even though some people might enjoy it and some people might not. When Warner Brothers would just kill good movies just to say, you know what, we want extra money, but hopefully that all changes when they try and actually figure out what they want to do in the future. And that's it. Those are the top 10 worst movies of 2025. I would say at least not all of them are just bad movies just for the sake of bad movies. A couple of them I can say are disappointments, but if there were worse movies, I would put them on this list. But I feel like, yeah, I want to be a little bit diverse when I do these things because I don't normally hate movies a lot. I say, yeah, this one disappoints me, and I feel like I have to mention it for the sake of mentioning it. But if there are really bad movies out there, I'd actually do a good list because those are a couple ones deserving to be here more than the ones I was actually excited for, and they kind of kept my hopes up. All right, guys, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. All my social media is down in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.